What up, everyone? This is Mr. Lord, Dr. Professor, Dark Joker, with another edition of Where, Pick, and Dare, where I pick games for the various games that are occurring tomorrow. Whether it's football, baseball, basketball, basically whatever games I want to pick, I will pick them. With all that being said, on with the video. College men's basketball. NC State Wolfpack versus Virginia Cavaliers. This is part of the quarterfinals of the ACC tournament. NC State's unranked 20-12 record. Virginia's 10 nation 27-4 record. Yeah, this is in Charlotte, North Carolina. So it's probably more of a home game for NC State. So for stats, NC State has more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage. Virginia has more rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game, and NC State has more steals per game. These stats are pretty close. I think home field advantage is going to be a big thing here. So I think NC State will pull off the upset and beat Virginia tomorrow. Louisville Cardinals versus Miami Hurricanes. This is part of the quarterfinals of the ACC tournament. So Louisville's 24 nation, 23-9 record. Miami's unranked 24-7 record. For stats, Louisville is more points per game, points against. Miami is a higher field goal percentage. Louisville is more rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game is even, and Miami is more steals per game. This is in Charlotte, North Carolina, so I don't think home field advantage is going to matter here. So with all that, the stats are pretty close. It's not really a clear advantage, like even with like who has more. I would say it's not that clear. So big thing go by is the rankings. So I think Louisville will beat Miami tomorrow. Florida State Seminoles versus Duke Blue Devils. This is part of the quarterfinals of the ACC tournament. So Florida State's unranked 18-14 record. Duke is one in the nation, 29-2 record. So this is in Charlotte, North Carolina. So it's a definite home field advantage for Duke. For stats, Duke has more points per game. Florida State has more points against. Duke has a higher field goal percentage, has more rebounds per game, assists per game. Florida State has more blocks per game, and Duke has more steals per game. The only stat that's really a big difference is points against. It's a 15.4 difference in favor of Duke. So with that and the home field advantage, I think Duke will beat Florida State tomorrow. Iowa State Cyclones versus Texas Tech Red Raiders. This is part of the quarterfinals of the Big 12 tournament. So Iowa State is 7 in nation, 26-6 record. Texas Tech is 16 nation, 22-9 record. This is at Kansas City, Missouri, so there's not really home field advantage here. For stats, Iowa State has more points per game. Texas Tech has more points against. Iowa State has a higher field goal percentage. Texas Tech has more rebounds per game. Iowa State has more assists per game. Texas Tech has more blocks per game, and Iowa State has more steals per game. These stats are pretty close. Like they're close. Like the one with the biggest difference is points against, but that's like a 7.5 in favor of Iowa State. I mean that one and points per game are in favor of Iowa State. So I think Iowa State will beat Texas Tech tomorrow. UCF Knights versus Arizona Wildcats. This is part of the quarterfinals of the Big 12 tournament. UCF is unranked, 21-10 record. Arizona is 2 nation, 29-2 record. For stats, Arizona has more points per game. UCF has more points against. Arizona has a higher field goal percentage and has more rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game, and steals per game. These stats are pretty close. And with like all the stats, now this is in Kansas City, Missouri, so home field advantage is not gonna matter. But with all the stats being in Arizona's favor, and Arizona being two in the nation, I think Arizona will beat UCF tomorrow. BYU Cougars versus Houston Cougars. This is part of the quarterfinals of the Big 12 tournament. BYU's unranked 23-10 record. Houston's 5 in nation, 26-5 record. For stats, BYU has more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage, more rebounds per game. Houston's more assists per game. BYU has more blocks per game, and Houston has more steals per game. So with this being Kansas City, Missouri, home field advantage is not gonna matter. But the stat with the big difference here is points against. That one's a 12.7 difference in favor of Houston. So with Houston being 5 in the nation, and with that points against difference, I think Houston will beat BYU tomorrow. Iowa Hawkeyes versus Ohio State Buckeyes. This is part of the third round of the Big Ten tournament. Iowa's unranked 21-11 record. Ohio State's unranked 20-11 record. For stats, Ohio State has more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage, more rebounds per game. Iowa has more assists per game. Ohio State has more blocks per game, and Iowa has more steals per game. These stats are pretty close. Now this is in Chicago, Illinois. So yeah, so for stats, so these stats, they're pretty close. And home field advantage is not gonna matter here with this being Chicago. So and so most of the stats are in, so as far it's pretty close as far I mean as far as favor, the stats don't really favor either side. I mean they're close, but even within each one, it's not that like an overall amount. So the only thing we really could go by is Iowa has more wins. Now, same amount of losses, but more wins than Ohio State. So with all that, I'm thinking Iowa will beat Ohio State tomorrow. Washington Huskies versus Wisconsin Badgers. This is part of the third round of the Big Ten tournament. Washington's unranked 16-16 record. Wisconsin's 23 in the nation, 22-9 record. For stats, Wisconsin has more points per game, points against. Washington has a higher field goal percentage and has more rebounds per game. Wisconsin has more assists per game. Washington has more blocks per game and steals per game. These stats are pretty close. Now, this is in Chicago, Illinois. Home advantage is not going to matter much here. I mean, Wisconsin's definitely closer than Washington, so there might be more Wisconsin fans there. And yeah, so the stats with the bigger difference between points and points against is points per game is a bigger gap. That one's a 6.5 difference, whereas points in favor of Wisconsin, while points against it's a 2.3 difference in favor of Washington. They're all these stats are pretty close. So, I think with Wisconsin being ranked, having more wins, less losses, I think Wisconsin will beat Washington tomorrow. Northwestern Wildcats versus Purdue Boilermakers. This is part of the third round of the Big Ten tournament. Northwestern's unranked 15-18 record. Purdue's 18 nation, 23-8 record. For stats, Purdue has more points per game. Northwestern has more points against. Purdue has a higher field goal percentage, has more rebounds per game, assists per game. Northwestern has more blocks per game and steals per game. It is at Chicago, Illinois, so it's definitely a home field advantage for Northwestern. So with these stats, are pretty close. So I think home field advantage is going to be big thing here. And with Purdue, they're basically guaranteed to make the NCAA tournament, so they don't have as much to play for. Whereas Northwestern, with their record, if they lose, they're done. So with this being in Chicago, I think Northwestern will beat Purdue tomorrow. Kentucky Wildcats versus Missouri Tigers. This is part of the second round of the SEC tournament. Kentucky's unranked 20-12 record. Missouri's unranked 20-11 record. For stats, Kentucky has more points per game. Missouri has more points against and has higher field goal percentage. Kentucky has more rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game, and steals per game. And, this is in Nashville, Tennessee. So home field advantage may not matter here, but since this is basketball, especially men's basketball, Kentucky will probably have a decent crowd there. So with how close these stats are, with I think if Kentucky's gonna have a bigger crowd there, that will help. So I think Kentucky will beat Missouri tomorrow. Auburn Tigers versus Tennessee Volunteers. This is part of the second round of the SEC tournament. Auburn's unranked 17-15 record. Tennessee's 25 nation 21-10 record. For stats, Auburn has more points per game, points against. Tennessee's a higher field goal percentage and has more rebounds per game, assists per game. Auburn has more blocks per game, and Tennessee has more steals per game. So this is a natural Tennessee, so it's a definite home field advantage for Tennessee. The only stat that's really a big difference is points against, which is a 10.2 difference in favor of Tennessee. So with that and the home field advantage, I think Tennessee will beat Auburn tomorrow. Ole Miss Rebels versus Georgia Bulldogs. This is part of the second round of the SEC tournament. Um, Ole Miss is unranked 13-19 record. Georgia's unranked 22-9 record. For stats, Georgia's more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage, more rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game, and steals per game. This is in Nashville, Tennessee, so home field advantage does not come matter here. This is the only stat that's really a big difference here is points per game. That one's a 15.1 difference in favor of Georgia. So I think Georgia will beat Ole Miss tomorrow. NBA. Philadelphia 76ers versus Detroit Pistons. The Sixers have an 18.3% chance to win. The Pistons have an 81.7% chance to win. This is at Detroit. For injuries, for the Sixers, Bona is a game time decision, and Oubre Jr., Maxey, Embiid, and Broomer out. For the Pistons, Thompson's out, and Levert's a game time decision. For stats, Pistons have more points per game. Sixers have more points against. Pistons have a higher field goal percentage and more rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game, and steals per game. These stats are pretty close, so home field advantage is going to be a big thing here. So with the home field advantage and the injuries to the Sixers, I think the Pistons will beat the 76ers tomorrow. Denver Nuggets versus San Antonio Spurs. The Nuggets have a 39.5% chance to win. The Spurs have a 60.5% chance to win. This is at San Antonio. For injuries, for the Nuggets, Watson's out. For the Spurs, War's third's a game time. War's third, Wembanyama and Barnes are game time decisions, and Jones Garcia's out. For stats, Nuggets have more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage. Spurs have more rebounds per game. Nuggets have more assists per game. Spurs have more blocks per game and steals per game. These stats are pretty close, so I think home field advantage is going to be a big thing here. So I think the Spurs will beat the Nuggets tomorrow. Boston Celtics versus Oklahoma City Thunder. The Celtics have a 32% chance to win. The Thunder have a 68% chance to win. This is at OKC. For injuries for the Celtics, White, Pritchard, and Tatum are game time decisions, and Vucevic is out. For the Thunder, Carlson, Williams, Hartenstein, and Sorber are out. For stats, Thunder have more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage. Celtics have more rebounds per game. Thunder have more assists per game, blocks per game, and steals per game. These stats are pretty close, so I think home field advantage is going to be a big thing here. So I think the Thunder will beat the Celtics tomorrow.
College baseball.
Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets versus Clemson Tigers. So Georgia Tech's 4 nations, 15-2 record. Clemson's 11 nation, 15-2 record. This is at Clemson. So yeah, conference play starting this weekend. I'm excited for that. That should be it. This is gonna be a good season of baseball. ACC, SEC are the two. Like could be two of your big conferences in that. This is ACC game, so this could be big. I mean, Tech, being like one of the early favorites to win the conference. Clemson's been seen as a contender. But yeah, this could be a good game. I think with this being at Clemson, with generally like your better pictures like in your first two games, I think Clemson will beat Georgia Tech tomorrow.
And that's it for picks. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to my picks. Do you agree with them? Do you not? If you have different picks, you can put them in the comments. But other than that, please like, subscribe, and all that. Thank you for listening, and look forward to the next video.